Chapter 2. On Saturday morning, Keg called on the phone to ask me if I wanted to come over for breakfast. His older sister, Megan, had made a special meal for a nutrition project she was working on for school. "I don't know," I answered. "What are you having?" "Well, I'm not sure," Keg said. "The last time Meg cooked a supper, it looked like something that came out of a mummy's tomb. It looked like ancient meatloaf." "How did it taste?" I asked. Keg laughed. "Do I look dumb enough to eat ancient meatloaf? I fed it to the kittens under the table. But Meg can make great desserts. She's making apple crisp this morning." I thought about the ancient meatloaf and took a whiff of the air. My stepmother, Marie, was making French toast. New French toast. So I decided to skip Meg's breakfast. After saying goodbye to Keg, I walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. "Andy, hurry up and eat your French toast before it gets cold," Marie called from the stove. Marie is not like the witchy stepmothers you read about in fairy tales. She rarely yells, and usually finds a nice way of telling me to do things. Marie loves to wear lots of jewelry. Big jewelry. She's got 4 rings on one hand and 2 on the other. She also likes long, dangly earrings, and she's always wearing them, even when she's in her nightgown. I guess some people would call Marie fat, but I don't think of her as fat. I think of her as big. Everything about Marie is big, even her smile. I like her smile a lot. I don't remember my real mother. She died when I was only 2 months old. My dad and I lived alone until he married Marie 4 years ago. The best part of living with Marie is that I don't have to go to daycare or to my aunt's house after school, because Marie is always home. She takes care of my new little sister, Winks. I never thought I'd like having a baby sister so much, but Winks is special. She has this funny look, as if she knows exactly what I'm saying to her, even though she's only a baby. Winks is a great listener. Sometimes I babysit while Marie is doing housework. I take Winks out in her little red swing in the side yard. My dad hung the swing from a low branch of our old oak tree. Winks loves to swing. I like to kiss her neck before I push her into the air. Her neck smells like flowers and baby powder. Winks' real name is Vanessa. But to me, Vanessa sounds like an old lady, not a 6-month-old baby. Her favorite toy is a plush pink pig with one eye that always seems to be winking. Once I caught her trying to wink back. So now every time I see her I say, "How's it going, Winks?" And she smiles. She doesn't smile when Jason says, "Hi, Vanessa." Which brings us to the worst part of living with Marie. Jason, her son from her first marriage. Jason was living with his dad, but decided to come live with us this past summer. It was the worst summer of my life. "I got a 96 on my math test yesterday, did I tell you?" Jason said as we sat at the breakfast table this morning. He looked over at my father. Dad's mouth was full of French toast, so he just nodded his head. But before Dad could say anything, Winks let out a loud burp from her infant seat. I grinned. Winks knows how to handle a braggart. I didn't even know what a braggart was until Jason moved in with us. Marie had given me a calendar for my birthday, and it had a new word for every day of the year. Braggart was the word for February 25th. It should have been the word for March 2nd, Jason's birthday. The definition says that braggart is someone who is always bragging and boastful. If the dictionary people had ever met Jason, I'm sure they would have put his picture next to the word. "Almost half the class failed the test," Jason continued to brag. "There were only 2 scores above 80. "That's great, hon," Marie said with a smile. "Keep it up and you can become a mathematician someday." "Or you could become some hotshot accountant," Dad said. Jason beamed. "And you could build a big monster house over in Brently and hire me to do the brickwork," Dad continued. Hey Marie, can you see me pulling up to Jason's mansion in the Chevy? Everyone laughed at this. My dad's a mason, and the pickup truck that he drives for work is an old beat-up Chevy. I shoved some French toast in my mouth and thought about my last math test. I had gotten a 69. It occurred to me that now would have been a good time to change the subject, and I was about to mention how Winks was looking like a baby bald eagle when Jason spoke up. So how did you do on your math test? He nearly shouted across the table. Not bad, I mumbled. Not bad, meaning a C or a D? A mean little smile had crept onto his face. Almost a C? I whispered, looking down at my French toast. That means a D, Jason announced to everyone. I was hoping Dad wouldn't hear, but when I raised my head, I could see that he was looking straight at me. Andy, he said, you're just not trying hard enough. You should be getting A's and B's, not C's and D's. I want you to go to college someday. If Jason can get good grades, so can you. Isn't one Mr. Gifted in the family enough? I wanted to answer, but I didn't, for I could see the wrinkles forming on Dad's forehead. They seemed to be there a lot lately. I knew he was worried about his job. My dad's got a bad back, and lifting block and hauling brick hadn't been easy. A couple of doctors told him that he should quit, but being a mason is all he knows how to do. If I had gone to college, Dad continued, staring off into space, I could have gotten a degree in forestry and become a forest ranger. We could all be living in the Grand Canyon right now. Phil, you're such a dreamer, Marie said, shaking her head. I don't want to be a forest ranger, I complained, and I'm glad that we don't live in the Grand Canyon. Who wants to live where they don't even have sidewalks? How would you be able to skateboard? Andy, you're not getting this, Dad sighed. You don't have to be a forest ranger. You can be whatever you want, as long as you work hard and get good grades. But maybe if you thought a little less about skateboarding and a little more about your schoolwork, you wouldn't be getting D's. I just sat there looking down at my French toast. I didn't look at Jason, but I could feel him grinning from across the table. What you need is a tutor, Marie suggested as she began feeding some yellow cereal to Winks. You and Jason never do anything together. Maybe Jason could help. He could tutor you. I rolled my eyes and groaned. It's either that or you'll have to ask about extra help from your teacher, Dad said. I'll ask my teacher, I quickly replied. Anything but Jason, I was thinking. Just then, Winks reached for the spoon in Marie's hand, scooped a little fistful of cereal out, and shoved it into her mouth. Marie and Dad were dumbstruck. Did you see that, Marie? Dad cried. She fed herself. Oh my gosh, what a big girl, Marie cooed. What a good girl. I gave Winks a wink from across the table. Her new stunt couldn't have come at a better time, for Marie and Dad had forgotten all about my math test and were now preoccupied with their good girl. What a life Winks has, I suddenly thought. All she has to do is sit there and stuff some cereal into her mouth, and she's accomplished this great feat. She didn't even get it all in her mouth, for a glob of it was sitting on her nose. Speaking of college, Marie said as she wiped at Winks' face with a washcloth, I was reading in the paper about a seminar at the community college is giving to teach people about color. Marie, even I don't have to go to college to learn my colors, Dad said. They teach you that stuff in kindergarten. Marie shook her head. This is something different. It's a color encounter workshop where people can discover which colors define who they really are. From what the article said, we're all supposed to have certain key colors that correspond to our personalities. They call it being in a certain color zone. Take a look at your daughter, Dad said, pointing to Winks, who was busy smearing the yellow cereal over her chin now. Wouldn't you say that she's definitely in the yellow zone? Well, I guess you could say that she's got a sunny disposition, Marie smiled. And Mom, you're in the red zone, Jason said. We all looked at Marie's hair. It was supposed to be auburn, she sighed. Marie had recently dyed her hair and thought it had auburn on the box, but it come out red on her head. Besides, your color zone is supposed to define who you are, not just what you look like, Marie told us. I don't know, babe, Dad said. I think Jason's right. I knew you were red hot the minute I laid eyes on you. He grinned. Marie blushed, and Jason and I made faces. Well, when I think of you, hun, Marie said, looking at Dad, I think of brown. Brown? Why brown? Dad frowned. Because you're strong like an oak, and you're so in touch with the earth, Marie said, smiling. Dad smiled too. Marie was always coming up with corny stuff like that. I don't know why, but Dad seemed to like it. I guess brown doesn't sound so bad after all, he said. What about me? Jason whined. What color would I be? When I think of you, Jason, Marie said, squinting her eyes, I think of blue. Blue, ribbon blue. Well, that's a good color for him, Dad agreed. Well, that was all Jason needed to hear. He puffed out his chest as if he thought another ribbon was about to be pinned on him at any moment. I began to wonder what color they would pick for me. As I sat waiting, Winks began to squirm in her chair. Dad reached over to take off her bib, while Marie unfastened the strap in her infant seat. Jason was busy staring at the blue ribbons on the bulletin board and probably worrying that there wouldn't be room for another one. No one was thinking about my color zone. I guess it was just as well, because I don't think they would have come up with a good color anyway. I certainly wasn't blue ribbon blue. We all knew that. Or even brown like Dad. I wasn't strong or smart. I wasn't red or yellow either. I was nothing. I was gray. I hate gray, but I bet that's the color they would have chosen for me. I was sitting at the table feeling like nothing when I heard the phone ring. Dad went to answer it. It's for you, Andy, he said. I walked over and took the receiver from him. It was Keg again. Well, Keg told me, I finished breakfast and I'm still alive. How was it? I asked. The eggs were green and some kind of parsley mixture, and the toast had a green mint spread on it. Eating green food the first thing in the morning is a disgusting way to start your day. Even the kittens wouldn't touch the stuff. I guess you were smart to stay home. We talked for a little while about what I had for breakfast, and then Keg asked, Have you decided on what you're going to make for your special Egypt project? I'm not sure, I whispered, walking into the hallway with the phone so no one could hear me. I have to wait and see what Mr. Gifted is making first. I don't want to do the same thing that he does, because his project is bound to come out better. It must be tough living with Mr. Gifted. Keg tried to console me. You have no idea, I sighed. Well, I have an idea for the project, and it's something that Jason won't be able to do, Keg whispered excitedly. I'll never come up with something better than him, I groaned. Oh, yes, you will, Keg said. This is one idea that even the genius won't think of. You're going to get an A for sure with this one. I pressed the phone to my ear. The idea I had thought of was okay, but what I needed was something more than okay. I was hoping this was it. So go ahead, tell me, what is it? I asked nervously. Keg's excited voice came back on the line. We can make a mummy, he whispered. You mean a fake mummy, I said. No, a real mummy, he said. A real mummy with a real dead body? That's right, Keg whispered. We can take a real dead body and turn it into a real mummy.